Hello, everyone. I'm just gonna wait like a second. Hello, Christian. Our guest is always earlier than me. One more second, guys. I'm just gonna give everyone like 3 more minutes just so we start on time. Because I had complaints that I start talking earlier than 6 p.m. and then people get mad at me. But okay, important note for this workshop, actually. Well, not only do we have an amazing guest, as always, that is the norm now on this channel, apparently, but this live stream is also happening on YouTube simultaneously. So if you want to rewatch this, or if you have any friends that don't have Zoom that want to watch this on YouTube, you can also check it out on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. So then after this is done, it will be available as a normal video. So whoever wants to rewatch this, you can now leave your complaints and questions about where the recording is to the YouTube channel. I will greatly appreciate all the comments. But I'm very excited for today, and we have an incredible guest, as always, and a super exciting workshop. I'm very happy that people are still interested in this 5 times in a row. We're still going strong. So, very excited. Let's just wait like 2 more minutes for everyone.
Yeah, we have time, I think. We can wait a couple of minutes.
We do, yeah.
No rush.
How are you, Christian?
Doing good. Yeah, very relaxed. I'm on holiday right now. I'm in
Oh,
Cologne.
amazing. Amazing. How's the
Yes,
weather?
it's pretty good. Yeah, it's not too hot. I don't
Oh,
like it
that's
too
good.
hot. Yeah. Yeah, how about
Berlin
you?
is Berlin has been crazy with the weather. It either rains or it's 37 degrees or there's nothing in between. I don't know what is going on. But I'm leaving to go on a trip with friends to Albania next week, so I'm very excited to leave. Yeah, but I'm doing good. I'm doing a lot of planning, a lot of filming content before I leave, so very exciting time. And I'm also on holiday, thankfully, after the thesis is done. Your thesis is also done, so we're both free now, right?
Yes, yeah, free summer.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Are you going to do your master's or do you plan to keep working?
Yes, I'll do my master's. I've already applied. I got accepted, and I'll stay at the same uni that I'm studying in right now
Oh, amazing.
in Berlin. Yes.
That's so
It's
cool.
just it just makes sense. It's just 1 year, and afterwards
Oh, it
I'll
is
be
one
done.
year.
So
Whoa. Well,
yeah,
congratulations. That sounds
thank you. You
incredible.
you too. I heard you already got your degree.
Yeah, I did, and I'm more so now thinking about my move to Milan in September because I'm starting studying there, and it's like so stressful. I literally just got an apartment like yesterday, finally, after months of looking for it, and it's so expensive. So I'm just like, there's too much going on, and I need to figure out too much stuff. But it's super exciting, and I'm very happy. Everything's happening as it is. Yeah, very
Yeah,
exciting.
very cool. But you're only gonna move in September, not
I
in
am, yeah. I'm actually
August.
moving 2 days before my term starts.
Oh wow.
So hopefully that will be enough time. We'll see, I guess. If it goes wrong, I'll let everyone know. Not to repeat my
Well,
mistakes.
you'll start your semester with boxes in your apartment. That's for
Exactly, yeah.
sure.
Yes, definitely. No, but it's super exciting. How is your game design going? I saw some stories, not very recently, but a couple of weeks ago. I see you doing something.
Yeah, always doing something. Yeah, it's more personal projects right now.
Hmm.
I'm trying to connect it more to architecture, to be honest,
Hmm.
um, because I just feel like there's a big benefit in connecting both. But
Hmm.
yeah, I'm always just doing, I'm just a really creative person, so I just love doing
Hmm.
3D models of random buildings and stuff, and I'm always doing some sort of stuff
Hmm.
on that front. But yeah, no huge serious projects there right now.
Hmm. But it's crazy what you can. built in a blender. Like, you guys don't understand. Christian is insane. He, like, what architect do you know that uses Blender professionally? He can build like full-on houses and like develop like villages, and then it's in games, and I don't even fully understand what's happening. But it's so intricate and detailed, the amount of 3D modeling that's being done, and like the renders that he also does for his work look insane. So I'm very curious what you're going to show us today. Also connecting to AI, because it's always the topic of interest for everyone.
Definitely. And it's cool that I get the opportunity. Thanks for the invitation, by the way. It's really cool to have the opportunity because we've been starting to use AI. Well, we started quite a while ago. We started 2 years ago, we started using ChatGPT.
Hmm.
And like a year ago, about a year ago, we started using image generation as a serious tool.
Hmm.
And I think it took a while to learn it. It does have a learning curve, except, well, besides, you can just type in whatever you want and get a result, but still,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that you actually get a good rendering out of it. So it does have a bit of a learning curve, and it took us a while, but now we're actually able to use it as a tool for making renderings specifically for competitions where we have designs that are super specific. They have to,
Whoa.
they have to represent exactly what we want. And that's also what I want to talk about today because I feel like whenever people talk about any sort of AI tool, they
Hmm.
always talk about this first part, this first thing where you have an idea, or you don't
Hmm.
even have an idea. You just have a site or you have like something, and then you wanna get inspiration for it. And AI
Hmm.
is amazing for that, but at work, in reality, 90% of the time, you're just going to have something in your mind that is already very specific, that already has a concept, that already has, a drawing that goes hand in hand with it. And then you need to represent it in a way where it makes sense for exactly that thing. And from my experience and from my frustration also, AI is a lot harder to use in that sort of very specific
Yeah,
way.
I
So yeah,
100% agree with you. I think before we give too much away, I think we have a little split audience going on here today because I feel like 20 of you guys are on YouTube and 20 of you guys are here on Zoom, so don't mind that. But I think before we dive too deep into this, we should definitely start because that is definitely something I want to address specifically today, since we are both students, we both also work while study. And this idea of using AI as a real design tool, like actually in at work, helping you generate renders for concepts, is something that is not talked about enough. Because what you said is absolutely correct. Like, you need like this attention to detail that you get from your render that you do manually. You need the same from an AI to use it effectively, which is what I would like to discuss today specifically. And without waiting further, I think since we are a split audience today, we should get into it. So, welcome to workshop number 5 of AI and Architecture 101. I am your dear host, Maria, as always. I need to perfect my intro at some point, but it will always be a little weird, I think. And we're joined by the amazing guest, Christian. Say hello to Christian in the chat, maybe. I don't, everyone always has their cameras off. Yeah, it's fine. But I'm going to get into Christian's CV in a little while. But he's an incredible young. Hold on, everyone needs to mute themselves a little bit just so I don't hear myself twice. Okay, no worries. We're going to get into some interesting stuff today. So first, I want to address today's flow. It's structured a little bit differently than the previous workshops. Previously, we always had the guests talk first, and then I give like a longer input. However, I believe Christian has a whole workflow prepared for us today, so I want to give him a little bit more time to do his thing. And also, there's an interactive segment for you guys. So we do have a little different structure. We're first going to recap a little bit why AI in architecture matters, why we do this. We're going to talk about how I use AI in my workflow, some new tactics I learned over the last couple of weeks from the last workshop. Then I have some tips and mindsets for students that maybe you guys can pick up on that will help you with your AI journey. And then we have our incredible guest talk that will be so excited. So please stay tuned for that because that's going to happen in a little bit. And of course, we have the Q&A as always and the closing segment. So let's just recap. We talk about this every single workshop, but I think it's so important to remember why we're using AI, because we're not using AI for the sake of replacing architects with AI or for the sake of designing with AI. Our goal is to use AI to make our lives a little bit easier as architects because we're very stressed. We don't get paid enough often. We do long hours. And if there's anything that can be a new tool for us to help us speed up our creativity, we should definitely learn it. It's like how we learned AutoCAD when we were drafting per hand before. It's the same thing in it. So it's important for design iteration. We want to be able to test different designs simultaneously. It's also important for visual storytelling. I said this before to showcase what is your general idea. This is talking about renders, perspectives you can also do with AI. So everything visual we can learn to do with AI. And also the workflow speed and clarity. It can be so much faster to try out different ideas just using AI without spending hours figuring it out before you even have a clear focus point of your design. So I think it's super important for that. And basically the goal is to just help us make AI another tool in our architect's toolbox. So to summarize that, we use AI for faster iteration of our ideas. We want to communicate more clearly, especially the mood of our designs. And we want just to feel more confident with our visualizations and help bring all of them to the next level. So the way I use AI is always changing a little bit depending on the project, but the general approach is always I design and AI amplifies. I think that it's very important to keep in mind, especially if you're a student, because obviously you can go into Midjourney and create like a crazy building and it looks really cool and you can animate it and whatever, but that is not really being an architect. Like your design has to do something, it needs to have a function, it needs to be for a certain group of people. It should be like an actual architecture. And for that, I always say design first and AI second. So just make it help you enhance the vision. For tools I use, my workflow is very simple. I have showed it before. If you want, you can check it out on the other videos on my YouTube channel. I go from Rhino to D5 usually. These are my like favorite toolways. And then if D5 is not enough, I use the AI enhancer in Adobe Firefly, which I like a lot. But there's also been a lot of interesting guests talking about VO3, how to use Midjourney if you already have a finished concept. And I'm sure Christian will tell us about a new tool today, possibly, or a new workflow we can use. So we should stick around for that. And I always use it to focus on mood, materiality, and clarity. So those three things. What materials do I have? What textures are there? What is the most important thing I want to show using my AI? And what I avoid so far is like overcomplicated generators. There's different tools online that are just way too complicated. I'm really trying to learn Comfy UI right now. Christian, I don't know if you know Comfy UI, but it's like Grasshopper but on drugs, and it's AI. It's it's crazy. I have not been able to get into it yet. I'm really looking for a guest to maybe potentially show it to me because that is very complicated. But what I want to say with that is you can use AI and not make it difficult for yourselves. So, another thing I want to point out is AI has also taught me a lot of things as an architect, being that like light and atmosphere are often really more important than the actual geometry of your rooms. Obviously, the geometry matters for the floor plan, the circulation, but when it comes to visualizations, the way the light and atmosphere is reflected often plays a really huge deal. Like we can get around that. Also, if you're using AI in those early stages, I really recommend focusing on clarity over detail. Make sure that the AI rendering you're doing, especially if it's not for a real project, but if it's like for your early stage development of a student project, make sure it like clearly defines what you want. Don't just focus on the details of the individual images. And just remember that good visuals always lead to better conversations. That's why we use AI mostly for visualizations in order to have this base, like photorealistic image of our project that we want to look at. And gotten some questions about whether or not using AI is cheating. I don't really understand that question, but I think it's not cheating because the design is still yours. It's just the same as saying, oh, if you don't draw your design by hand, it's cheating because you're using ArchiCAD or you're using AutoCAD to draw the lines, to draw the vectors for you. You're just pulling your mouse. Like that's how it sounds to me. I think we need to, as a community, become a little bit more open-minded to this new tool. But you're all here, so maybe I'm just preaching to the choir at this point with my statement. I also wanted to address a little bit about prompts again, before we get into it. So, the issue that a lot of people have when they do use prompts, this works for most AIs, by the way. So Midjourney, I tested it with Adobe Firefly and also DALL-E. These are the three main ones I use. When you're prompting, it's important to not move into these like confusing explanations that you use for photography, because a lot of photographers, when they try to help you become an AI artist, they're always saying, okay, make sure you specify that you want it to be 8K, you want it cinematic, you want it to be 3D. That all makes sense. However, because we are using AI for architecture, it is always really important to make sure you focus on the atmosphere and the architectural part. So I always say, remember to list the material, the atmosphere. I always say the location is also really good. Just don't just focus on what you want the image to be, but what you want the actual architecture to be. And of course, there's also don'ts of AI that we should keep in mind before we begin to use it. Don't let AI replace your design thinking. It should help you enhance your process and just make your life easier. Don't overcomplicate it. AI should, again, make your life easier, not complicate it with new tools. Don't generate a countless amount of outputs just to then leave it all and not have something clear that you want to use. I always recommend just starting with 3 to 4 images and then going from there. And don't wait around until you're perfectly versed in all of the new AI technology. The best way to learn something is to experiment, which is why we're also here at this workshop, because we will see some live demonstration, which I think is incredibly valuable. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the future outlook of AI. I've been thinking a lot about this the last week because I've been talking to Christian, obviously, about this workshop and also a couple of other guests, and everyone's talking about like, okay, but what does AI look like in the future of architecture? Why are we even doing this? And I think there's a lot of different ways it can be used in the future. Some people were talking about AI and BIM integration. I have no idea how that's going to work, to be honest, because we can't even figure out BIM so far without the AI integration. At least I can't. Maybe the AI will help us figure it out in the end. Also, there's a lot of people saying it's good for sustainability. Obviously, AI has its own sustainability questions, but we can use generative design to test out different sustainability concepts, which should be a good thing. Also, talking about gaming, a lot of architects also post on LinkedIn about using AI to create designs for games and AI architecture for the gaming world, which I want to ask our guest about later. And also just remember that it's a new tool and we should learn the new tool if we want to be present in the field and develop and evolve as the architecture industry itself evolves. So without further ado, that was a little bit of a long intro from my end, but I just wanted to recap why we all are here and introduce you to our incredible guest, Christian. So Christian is a dear friend of mine. He is also an architecture student from Berlin. He's an architect and video game designer. And he was actually the first person that I ever interviewed for my channel. And then after that, the studio that he works at was the second studio that we interviewed for our channel. So I'm very happy that you're still sticking around after all these years and such an incredible, valuable contribution to my community and to just architecture in general. So the studio that he works at is called Archiformus. They're a cool young studio in Berlin. If you want, you can check it out as well. But Christian also does a lot of cool freelance work and a lot of cross-disciplinary stuff. So there's a lot of architecture, gaming, and also AI. And the reason why Christian is here today is because I was visiting their exhibition at their university. My other friend also is at the same university and he invited me, and I when I walked in, I saw Christian and we said hi again. And I was like, where's your bachelor thesis? And he was like, oh, it's right there on the wall. And I look at it and it's incredible, guys. Like, if you want to see his bachelor thesis, you can go on his Instagram page. I'll link it in the chat later when he will be talking. But it's incredible. Like, the design is so beautiful. And then he was like, oh, guess where AI is? And I was like, what? And he was like, guess what, in which part of the render there's AI? And I was like, what do you mean? And I could not tell what part was AI from this render until he told me. And then I knew we need Christian on the workshop series to show us how to create renders where I cannot tell how AI will work. So Christian, please take it away. I'm very excited for your input. Sorry for the long intro.
Thank you so much. Yeah, let me try to share my screen first.
Give me one.
Oh,
Yes.
that was the video.
Yes.
Uh, 1 second.
No
I'm
worries.
not using this too often.
Don't worry about it. We have some time.
Share, here we go.
Yes.
Okay. Now, let me start. I did prepare a little presentation
Ooh,
just because I'm on
amazing.
holiday and I think honestly, so I thought a lot about this, whether I wanted to um, actually render with AI in the presentation. And I ended up thinking it doesn't make sense because it does take a couple of seconds every time you do it. And
Yeah.
it would slow down the presentation format a bit. So instead what I did, I went through all the things I did in the past, all the big projects, and I actually exported them from the rendering software, and then I put them in the presentation. So I hope it's a bit more easy to follow and a bit less messy as well. Also because I'm not on my big PC. So we'll see if that works out. Um, Yes, I want to talk specifically about AI for architecture students, and especially about, as I've already mentioned, AI for creating architecture renderings um, on the basis of something that you already have, instead of just, using AI tools to create something to get inspiration, because everyone can do that. And yeah, we're trying to be a bit more specific here.
Hmm.
So that's about me. You've already said that. Oh, well, actually,
No, go
because
back. I want to hear it again. Don't skip
there's
it.
well, there's maybe one interesting thing. So yeah, I'm Christian. I've got my bachelor in architecture, doing my master's next. And I have this interesting crossover. So I actually started working in the video games industry before I did even architecture, which was interestingly something that, so I always wanted to be an architect, but it was something where, just on the way of becoming an architect, it was easier to start with the 3D software to make nice models of interesting buildings for video games. Then, that was easier than learning, becoming an architect, because you basically have to do university for that. And I was like 15 when I started. So yeah, so that's something that happened first. And yeah, I'm just a student. I saw that a lot of the speakers that were here already were like crazy. They had like 10 years of experience in as an entrepreneur in sort of AI companies. I cannot talk in the same way as they do, just because I have less experience. But I hope I can still, contribute a little bit, because yeah, I'm in the same boat as all of you, probably. I'm just a student as well, and because of this crossover with the video game industry, which I've learned is a lot more, let's say, digitally advanced than the architecture industry, believe it or
Mhm.
not, because they have to be digital. So coming from there, it's actually, you learn a lot of things that you can actually put to use in architecture. So I'm hoping to be able to do that in the presentation. Yeah, as Maria said, I'm working in Archiformus, which is a very newly founded Berlin architecture office, and we're trying to be a bit more alternative with our workflows. So a lot of the things I'll be showing come from projects I've done for work, and in my video games job slash art direction, I've worked if you know a bit about video games, I've worked for the City Skylines branding, and I will not be showing you anything from there, but there might be some interesting insights I could give from that job. Um, yeah, so let's talk a bit about today. Um, I believe everybody can use AI, right? Everybody can type in a prompt. Everyone can, pull up the website, write something down, and get a result. Um, I also believe that only the fewest people right now know how to use it to its fullest potential, because you need to know a lot of context about how does the AI work, and especially how to implement the AI in your workflow. That's kind of the most important thing. That's probably the biggest takeaway from today that
Hmm.
you're going to see, that you have to connect it to your workflow. And so today we're going to talk about mastering generative AI as a student, adjusting your workflow, and especially generating images with already something in mind. I believe I've made the same frustration as everyone has. AI, using AI, or like especially image generation AI, is extremely frustrating in the beginning, because you have a prompt or you type something in, you want something very specific, and it just doesn't give you what you want. And you start thinking, is it the tool? Is it just bad? Is it me? Am I doing the wrong prompt? Is it something else? Is there, am I doing a design that just hasn't been there before, and the AI cannot guess what I'm talking about? Um, but you'll see today in the workshop that it is not, it's not a magic tool. It's not a tool that can do, I think, like in that situation, when you're using it first, it seems like it's a crazy tool. It can do crazy things. You don't understand how it's working, and you start thinking, wow, this will replace my job. This will, do something that I cannot do in no time. And it just doesn't do that. That's not the case. So it will not replace our jobs. And yeah, before we get into the workflow itself, um, I think the first thing you need to think about when using AI is you need to be very specific in when you want to use it. So I've seen a lot of my fellow students who have been using AI in situations where it didn't really make sense to use it. And that kind of maybe connects to the cheating you've talked about earlier,
Hmm.
Maria. Um, so they've presented things that were very clearly AI. And from my experience, it can make a bad impression. Even though you're saving time, you're improving your workflow, it can make a bad impression if used in the wrong situation and as an afterthought, and if you can very clearly see it's AI, because it's just automatically giving you the impression that, this person hasn't done it themselves. So that's why I think it's extremely important to avoid, using it in the wrong situations, and also using it in a way where it's super obvious that it's AI, just like in the pictures on the right, which is, by the
Hmm.
way, my first ever AI creation on Midjourney in, I think, 2022. Um, so yeah, all about workflow. Um, I want to make an analogy. If you know a bit about photography, you'll probably know that all photographers always say it's not about the camera, it is about the photographer. And AI is exactly the same. It is not about the tool. You can use any tools that you want, you can use them in any way you want. What counts is just how you in your mind can judge if it's good work or if it isn't, and how you can, set it up to work in the way that you want it to work. Um, and there are obviously a lot of pitfalls, and most of them, or all of them, we're going to talk about today. First of all, let's do an experiment. So I need a volunteer from the audience. I hope there's someone that would like to do it. It's extremely easy. It's going to take 30 seconds. So Maria will give you a picture, and all you need to do is you don't have to turn on your camera or anything. You just need to describe it. I'm going to take a piece of paper, and I'm going to try to draw it down in a way that is as exact as possible, and we'll see how that goes. So I hope there's someone who wants to do it.
Can you look away from your screen so I can screen share it to the other people, and then maybe someone will be brave enough?
Yes. Unless, is there a way to send something directly to people?
It's a little bit difficult because I can't really send an image in the chat on Zoom, at least not from
Okay,
my
yeah, in that
experience.
case, I'll just turn around and
Yeah,
you let me
I'll let
know.
you know. Yeah.
Yes, but first we need a person. It's very easy.
Come on, guys. This
Let's
is
make this a bit
interactive.
interactive. Yes, that'd be great.
Whoever wants to help me out and Christian do the segment is very welcome.
Okay, well, if there's no one, maybe you can just describe the picture.
I can,
I don't, so
that's fine.
I haven't seen the picture before, and you're gonna try to describe it to me, and then you can send it in the chat or screen share afterwards, and we'll
Okay.
compare the results.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm willing to volunteer.
Oh, you
That'd
do
be
volunteer.
great.
Amazing. Okay, so then you can
Yeah.
turn around, Christian, and I will
Yes,
show Shreya our picture. So turn around, no cheating. Okay,
I'm taking the
so
paper with me, so
do you see the picture?
Yeah, I see it.
Can you describe it for Christian now?
Oh my God. Okay, so this is like a point of view from above a river, I think, and there's this long boat. And there are two people in it, and uh, the water is green, blue. Oh my God, why am I not able to describe? There are like orangish red fishes, and there's a face underwater, and it's like huge on like the left part of the. Oh my God. What else?
No, you're doing a good job. I think it's a good description. Do you
Wh-
need more, Christian? I don't
okay.
even
Yeah.
know
Well,
what you
wh-
need.
let's try it like this.
Okay, wait, don't turn around, don't turn
Oh, I'm not seeing anything.
around.
I'm actually only seeing my own screen.
Okay, now you can turn
Well, but
around.
we can
Mhm.
share the results now.
Oh, we can. Do I just
Yes,
share it again?
yes.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
That
How
is
do
what I
I?
was showing.
I'm gonna stop sharing very quick so I can see the picture as well.
Can you see it? If you
Not
go back
yet.
to if you go back to the Zoom, you should be able
Uh-huh.
to see the screen share.
Hmm.
No?
No,
Oh wait, let me turn it off and I'll try again.
that
Actually.
would be great. So I can show you what I've sketched. I've
Oh,
missed
that's
the
pretty
fish.
good.
The fish was supposed to be here, but well, it isn't. There was no space. So yeah, like these are supposed to be like small fishes, big
Yeah,
boats, like sort of river from the top, and
yeah.
then water.
Can you see it now? I just reshared it.
I don't think I can. This is a bit weird.
If not, I can send it to you on Instagram so you can look at
Yes, that'd be
it.
great.
Now,
In
now I
any
just want you to
case,
see it.
so probably everyone's already seeing how different it looks from the actual image. Um, it's well, whatever. It's Maria, what would you say? Is it very different or is it somewhat close?
I think the positioning is very close, but the perspective of the picture that I showed is like straight top view, like bird's eye view, and yours is like a little from the side, like a perspective drawing. So I think that's the main difference. But the idea of it is very similar, actually.
Okay. Yeah,
I
I'll
sent it
share my
to you on
screen again.
Instagram if you want to look at it.
Um,
But
you see that it's very hard to do that. You see that it's incredibly complicated to explain a picture to someone because there's a huge amount of info. And that is kind of what I wanted to show you with this sort of little experiment. Um, so if I can, here we go. Can you see the presentation?
yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So yeah, that's kind of the takeaway. It's incredibly hard to explain a picture to someone. And that is exactly the same when you talk to AI and you put a prompt and you try to explain what you have in mind, because usually you have very specific things in mind. That is exactly the same, that the same challenge that AI has to put up with. It is trying to understand what you actually want to generate. And usually that is where the frustration comes from, because if you just give AI, 5 words, um, AI is going to just, fill in the rest, whatever it thinks it is right. But it's gonna be different to what you have thought of. So a like a solution for that would be to just do longer prompts, but you're never gonna actually get to where you want to be. It depends a lot on luck. It's frustrating. So what you can do instead, um, what you can do instead, and this is where I'm going to talk about my own projects, is you provide it with pictures. You provide it with certain things that it can already, you know, have something where it just needs to improve something very specific. And yeah, so these are some projects I've done. The left one is my bachelor thesis. The other ones are from work. They've all used AI, and we're going to talk about some of them in depth, how they came together, and what steps AI fulfilled in that process, and what worked, and also what didn't work.
Mhm.
Let's talk very quickly about what AIs I use. I use a very limited set of AI, to be honest. I know that a lot of people experiment with a huge amount of AI. I use exactly two. I use ChatGPT, which is sort of my general intelligence AI, and then I use Rendair, which is a paid tool. And we're going to take a look at it in a second. Um, the reason I'm only using two is quite simple. It is I don't want to lose time, having to learn a new AI every 2 weeks. I want to use, when I'm working, I do not want to focus on learning anything about the AI. I want to have a tool that works, where I know that what it can do and what it can't do. And that is, in that case, much more beneficial for me than, using a tool that it might be a lot better than the tool I have, but I just cannot use it correctly. Um, and also I have paid accounts for both of them. So that does make a difference. And you obviously cannot have paid accounts for all of them. Although in both cases, I think they also have free versions, so you can work with them free, just in a more limited sense. Um, and this is, I think, where I need to reshare my screen because I've put it to the wrong screen. Here we go.
Mhm.
So this is Rendair. It's just a browser app, as most of the AIs are. And there is a feature that lets you describe something, and then just like most of the other AIs, so text to image, which you probably all have worked with before. You explain something, you provide a picture if you want, and then it generates something for you. But in the case of this AI, there's a lot more possibilities. So you can create pictures based on specific basic images. So you can do elevation to render, you can do sketch to render, you can do 3D base to render, image to render, and then you can also provide a sort of a finished rendering, and you can have variations for it. So keep this in mind. You can provide anything you want for the AI to create something out of it. And then you can choose what style you want. There are certain styles, I think, for different. No, never mind. There are these styles, but you can also feed the AI with your pictures and create your own styles. And then you can set the strength of the image and the colors of the existing image. So how much of the existing image you believe is necessary for the AI to work with, and how much you want it to kind of vary on the basis of that. You can describe a prompt also. You can say what you want. You can say, very specific things. From my experience, honestly, and you're going to see that in the presentation, I think there's one slide where you can see a prompt. All the other ones do not have prompts in it, because it's not actually, just because of the reason I've done the experiment. It's not as useful because you cannot describe it in a way that is efficient enough for it to create very specific situations. You can also set a parameter for creativity, and you can add a reference image, which can help in some situations. And then this is the same things you can do for all of these generation tools. Once you have your tool, once you have your image created, you can also edit it, and also with a certain style. So you can just change this style, but you can also remove specific objects. You can do insert and modify. You can do sketching in context. So Rendair lets you sketch in the image, and then on the basis of that, it'll generate things, which I've also used before. It can be helpful. And then you can upscale the image, and that's something where you kind of iterate more detail into the basic image. So these are kind of the three tools. You can create, you can edit, and then you can enhance. And you can do that with certain amounts of image strength of the original image. You can do that with certain amounts of creativity. You can give an image, you can give a prompt. That is very similar to how all of these AIs work. And that's kind of also everything you need to know about the tools that you get for the AI. And I'm going to go back to the presentation.
That is very interesting. I've never used Rendair before, but I've heard people talking about it. So very cool that you're using just that. So that means it works.
It
If it's
does.
enough.
It does. It's it might not be the most advanced AI, to be honest, because it's not a huge company. I think the AIs from Google and all the huge companies, they can pour billions of funding into making them better. In this case, it's well, it's probably they can't do that, but they just have a very nice tool set. They have a lot of options to work with. And that is something I personally think I benefit from quite a lot. So that's why I stick to Rendair. But that's not to say that that is the best tool to use. It's probably very similar to most of the other tools. And it's just to say that these are the sort of tools that you have. And we're going to be more concrete in the next minutes. And I think it's good to know, to kind of categorize it into these things that, it can edit images, it can create something from a basic image, and it can enhance, and these tools. It's very useful to keep that in mind, to then be able to decide better how you want to use the AI and when. First things first, never start with a finished rendering. If you want to improve your rendering, never start with a finished one, because basically it gets worse. Also, same thing as with the text prompts. You're not going to get the image to be exactly what you want. So in this case, you can see maybe the surroundings look a bit better. But then the building itself, this is a project from my third semester work. Um, it's it might look a bit more fancy from further away, but if you care about the details, like if you look at the staircase at the bottom, like that doesn't make sense at all. It's yeah, you're not going to be satisfied with the result, and maybe even worse, you're going to lose a lot of time producing that, almost finished rendering in the first place. So you're going to invest a lot of time into trying to make it look as good as possible. Um, right, so now the pictures are in the way. Let me try to, is there, whatever. So AI does not do the entire job for you. That's a very simple truth. That maybe this one shows. It cannot, it cannot be an afterthought. It cannot be something where you do your rendering and then you put it through AI and then it magically looks 20 times better. Instead, you use it in combination with other software. At least if you want it to be, this is what we're talking about. If you want it to be a very specific, concrete rendering where you don't really see that it's made by AI. If it's a quick thing, use it in whatever way. But in this case, it's a lot smarter and a lot faster as well to combine it with other image creation processes. AI is amazing at certain things. That is atmosphere, that is realistifying something that is, 90% there, but not quite. It's amazing at if you have a repetitive texture, it's amazing at, improving that texture to be also that 10% more realistic. Lighting change, it's quite good at making these shadows on the corners where everything looks more realistic. Nature details as well, giving design options too, if you want that. AI is horrible at producing details, not just architectural details, just anything that you want to be very specific. It's also very bad at, giving consistent results. If you try it again, it's going to look completely different. And so it is a big thing that depends on chance. And it's also very bad at reading your mind. So if you, now that we're talking about workflow, you can basically implement the AI in a way where it uses the phases where in your normal creation process for the image, you would do these things in the green box where you work on irregularity, lighting change, a little bit of color, a little bit of atmosphere, which honestly, if you do realistic renderings, you pour hours into that just to get that tiny realistic look. That is what AI is good for, but some things need to be there, and that is a lot of the details, a lot of the shapes, the layout, the composition for the image. That all needs to be there for the AI to have something to base, the specific things that you want on. This is a project we've done at work. It's not the final project, but it's a competition rendering for a Nepalese school we've done at work. So we have an office branch in Nepal, and one day there was like, my boss came up to me and he was like, "Okay, we have 2 days. We need to produce 3 highly realistic images for a competition. Put something together and use AI if you want." And so that was kind of the first time where we had to use AI in a very, very short time frame. If you've ever rendered, you know that 2 working days and 16 hours for 3 images is not actually that much. It's a very short time frame. And we had to produce 3 big renderings out of it. So the first thing we did was we said, okay, we're gonna turn down our expectations. We're gonna start with the usual workflow. We're gonna get into, so we did already have a 3D model, which I guess nowadays you usually have that. If you still work in 2D, I highly recommend you to work in 3D. Not only does it produce quicker plans, but it's also it lets you then, render the thing straight away, which is a huge amount of, time saved. So we already had that. We had a 3D model, and we went to, well, in this case, Blender, and we just produced a very shitty rendering from it. Like you can see it's a horrible rendering. Um, what we didn't implement in this rendering is stuff like foliage. So there is, there's trees, but they look horrible. There is a sky, but it's also super boring. There are no people in the rendering. There are no details. And again, I have the pictures in front of that, so I can't see it. That's great. So I think that says materials, right? So
Yeah.
the materials will also save time on. Instead of making them hyper realistic, we just put a texture on top of whatever we wanted the wall to look like, and the bamboo and the ground. Very quick and dirty job, horrible rendering. And then yeah, what we really took care of, and what we also invested a couple of hours in, was the layout and the composition of the image. So making sure that everything is right in the way where it needs to be. There were some important features that had to be there. So the school is constructed in this sort of bamboo construction thing, bamboo grid. And obviously, in a competition rendering, that has to show, like that has to be exactly the same as it is in the plans and in the details. So we had to make sure that that was correct in the rendering, and yeah, some things like that. Those just have to be there because they are the ones that you care about, and they're the ones that the AI should not change afterwards. And here you can see the final rendering. So that was after the entire process, and you can see that it looks a lot better. And I'm going to show you that this was not just one creation. So it looks like this was, put into AI now, and that's the final result. It was not like that. Let me show you. Can you see the image now?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
Oh,
So yeah, here you can see just a couple of the creations that we did. Um, we tried to sketch in context. So I tried to sketch a bit of foliage here. So these were the lines I sketched, and it transformed them into some weird, whatever that is. Um, so you can see here, no clue what it did. I think we tried to change a wall or something. Didn't work well. And yeah, so it is still, even if you work for very specific things, it is still very frustrating, and it needs a lot of iterations and a lot of trial and error. That's just part of the process. This is the first time where we got a result where so we in that case we mixed in a lot of creativity and a very simple prompt, and it gave a great result. Like it's a great looking picture, but then it has completely removed the bamboo. But that was
oh
the first
no.
time where we said, okay, this could work. This could be a thing. And we tried again. Again, not quite there. And then we adjusted the parameters a bit. So we turned down the creativity, and we ended up with this picture, which looks a lot more realistic, and importantly, it doesn't change any of the details. So we knew we had found the right balance in the parameters, in those three parameters that you could give. And yeah, that's another bad one. Yeah, so I think from here, this was another one that looked good. And then so I think at this point we decided, okay, this is it. We're gonna work with this. And then we started focusing on more detail. So we started changing the people, if you can see that. We just said, okay, make the people better. didn't quite work. I'm going to show you a hack later on, how you're going to get the people perfectly 100% of the time. But yeah, a couple creations later, it looked like this. So already a lot better. We changed a bit of the general atmosphere, but we also changed the people around a bit. And I think here it's just details. It's, you know, changing the floor, changing the walls, changing the vests of the workers. So we had to have workers that have like these yellow vests, also that they look, you know, like they belong to a team. The reason I'm showing you all of this is that you'll see what we changed is not much of the building. So the building looked right at some point. So we used the general creation to kind of enhance the, or to create the good looking image from the rendering we had. And all of the edits we made were just on tiny details, on things where we knew. So the walls we didn't even end up taking into the final rendering, the edits, because it just didn't do it in so the wall was too white for our feeling, and it couldn't change it to be less white. But the other things like the floor and the people, those worked well because they are things that do not belong to the building itself. They do not need to be very specific. No one cares if the people wear, you know, jeans or shorts. And also the floor, no one cares if the floor is like tiny bit different. And so those are the tools that work well for the AI. So that's one example. Okay, here we go. So yeah, again, it's AI is very good for these specific things where you want to change a smaller thing of the scene, but it's not super concrete in your head how it has to be. And in that case, it can do quite a good job. So in this case, we try to change, or in this example, we try to change the looks of the people. So the people looked a bit too African American, where the school is based in Nepal. So the people had to look kind of Nepalese. So we just said, okay, do it again. Put Nepalese looking people and wearing brightly colored construction vests. And then it looked a bit more the way we wanted to. Yes. And then what we did afterwards as a last step, and that is always only the last step, is we enhanced the pictures. So that is the third tool that I showed earlier. So by enhancing, we basically made the image larger, and we did bring in more grain, more detail where previously it was a bit, you know, blurry, and it doesn't change any of the content. So that's the great thing about that tool. You do not have to risk that, you know, your wall is pink well before it was white or something. So nothing has changed, but the picture just looks a tiny bit more realistic in the details, which is great if you do like, you know, like a 1 meter final exhibition rendering or something. So that is something you always do last. Yes. This is actually taken from the other rendering we did for that competition. This relates back to the realistifying material. What you usually have in renderings, especially if you work quickly, you have these repeating textures. You have textures that don't look quite realistic. And without actually having to put up the creativity of the rendering a lot, like you don't have to change a lot. You just have to tell the AI, like, redo it a tiny bit better, like put in a tiny bit of variation, but not much. Without that, or with that, you can make the materials a lot better. So in the left image, you can see that in the back of the room, the concrete floor looks a bit repetitive, like the texture does repeat. And after that creation, it just looks that 10% better, where you don't see that it's a texture anymore. So that worked amazingly in that picture. Also, the tree looks a lot better. The tree had a bit of the tree and also the dirt on the floor, they looked a bit off as well. So for that, it also worked amazingly. And yeah, and so for that rendering, instead of spending 10 hours, we spend 1 hour doing it, just setting up the, the colors, the materials, the composition, and then AI did the rest. And we didn't lose 9 or 8 hours of adjusting the details. Yes, in this rendering, I had to do, that's a different project also from work. I had to do a large scale landscape. And if you've ever tried to do that as a realistic rendering, it just doesn't work because you have to, you have to put in huge amounts of 3D models in 3D, or you have to be amazing at Photoshop to be able to do it. So in this case, also we very consciously split up the workflow into what we wanted to do in what step. On the left, you can see the rendering, which was already quite worked out. That came from so that project also had multiple renderings. So we had a situation that was already very worked out, but we only took the buildings. So we rendered with a filter that removes the background for everything that is not, foliage or buildings. And then the middle picture is everything I added in Photoshop. And it's a bit small right now, but you can see that, like, if you zoom in, I did spend a lot of time doing that, admittedly, which I wouldn't have had to be honest. But you can see the grass doesn't look quite amazing. It's got the wrong scale in a lot of places. You can see that here the trees, they have different shading, they have different colors, so that you can see they were not, from the same source image. And this is definitely something that puts you off when seeing it. Like first glance, if you see it as a big picture in front of you, you're gonna see this doesn't look right. And yeah, this is already quite well made. You can make it much more shitty. And then you put it into AI, and that is the results. So that's how it ended up looking. And you can see, if you compare this, you can see the colors match a lot more better. The trees match better. They're all the same kind of trees. The colors match, the details match, the shading matches. But kind of the layout is exactly the same. And so we basically it's a hotel we're doing in the south of Germany, and it's got this view across the fields. And we wanted to kind of display the openness of the surrounding landscape. But because it's going to be also a rendering that is displayed for the clients, and on the construction site, where you basically have the context in front of you, we had to provide a context that looks exactly, or pretty much exactly the same, with those hills in the background, with the fields in the background. And so in this case, the AI did not change any of the perspective, any of the kind of where the trees are, how the trees get smaller in the distance. So yeah. And maybe just to show you the tool that I used for that specifically, for those of you who are interested in using Rendair, that was the render variation. So providing a finished image that is very low in effort, and then enhancing that. Yes. In some cases, image to render, these are quite similar. That could work as well. Back to the presentation. Yeah, another project. Again, well, in this case, I think I had less than a working day to do the rendering. So this
Your
was
poor soul, you always have like this little amount of time for this rendering.
Yeah, well, but it's part of the challenge. And so in this case, it was a freelancing job. So I could have spent 1 working week on this, but I did it during the bachelor's finals, and I just wanted to make sure that I'm spending as little time as possible on it, like, as saving as much time as I somehow could. So I started with this left rendering, just dropping in some trees, which you can do in Enscape or in Corona, or a lot of these programs where you can insert pre-made furniture or foliage or details. I just did that, and I had a rendering without the context. And then also what I did was I just put it into the AI, and then I told the AI to just, fill up the background for me, just something that made sense. Gonna zoom in again because it's too small. You can see, well, the people look horrible. The people are completely messed up, which is something that happens very usual. Also, the sign that was there before is completely gone. Doesn't make sense anymore. But the surroundings kind of look fairly good. And for this one, I tried it again. I was short on time. I tried it 3 times. One with a very short, amount of variation. One with a medium amount where you can already see it, changes quite a few things. And then one that changes a lot. So the path is completely different. And I didn't end up choosing that one, definitely. I think I ended up choosing this one. Maybe not. No, maybe not. Maybe I chose this one. So in this case, what I did was I just combined this image back in Photoshop, back together with the initial building, because that building, so again, that was a rendering for like a construction sign where the building just had to look correct. Also, the architect would have complained if I had. So the architect was quite picky about the building, actually. Everything had to look. So I included a little tiny detail here, and the architect told me to remove it because it was not the same as in the drawings that were provided, which was just the intention of making it a bit more realistic. Because at the end of the day, you're gonna have to have a little metal sheet here. But yeah, the architect didn't want that. And so I had to be super specific. And so I chose for this rendering, for the final version, to combine the rendering in which the building looked good with the foliage that was AI generated. And that was kind of the final result. And it doesn't actually take that long because if you picture in Photoshop, you have the AI generated image, and then you put the rendering without context above, and then you basically use a mask and you just use a very quick brush and you brush out all the features that you don't want. That takes about 30 seconds. So maybe the takeaway of this one is don't hesitate to, and I've said that earlier, don't hesitate to work in multiple programs. AI does not do the job for you, and that sometimes means, as frustrating as it is, sometimes means that you take a specific detail and you use that to put in your rendering, whereas some things you want to be looking in a very specific way, and then those details you have to use what you created yourself.
Can I ask about the people life hack that you teased? How do you
That's
create
gonna be
perfect
that's 2
people?
slides away.
Oh, it's
That's 2
coming.
slides
Okay,
away.
it's coming.
Yes,
I just
that is
thought
coming.
I need to know how to fix this because this is my issue every time.
Very easy fix, actually. So yeah, in
Okay.
this project, I'm going to talk about the people because here the people are pretty much what I did. Well, no, it's everything was a bit AI adjusted, but the people were the main part that I needed help with in this rendering. For this one, I also had, I think this one was also done in a working day. And I'm showing you this to tell you that it's always an iterative process. And this is true for image generation in general, for rendering. If you want to render an image, I highly recommend to, just as I did here, to start with a quick sketch, for example, where you just already have something in mind that is a bit more specific than just a thought. So on the left here, that's a sketch I did within like 20 minutes. And then the second version, you can see the first time I hopped into 3D, and I already had the model as well. That came from ArchiCAD, so that was there. I didn't have to model anything, and so I did that, and it I didn't end up liking the arch that you look through, and then I removed that, and you can see that bit by bit, image by image, the thing becomes better. But in each step, I have very specific things. You can see there's like a checklist. and each step I have very specific things that I'm changing, and I'm changing only that to really be able to measure, does it look better than before? And with that process, you can also implement AI quite well because you have specific things that you need to do. Yes, people, finally. Okay. Um, people. People are complicated sometimes, especially if you want them to be in a very specific location doing something very, you know, something that you've thought of before. I had one rendering once where I had to include a choir of old men and someone,
What was
you know,
that project?
conducting. That was from the same project actually. But I wanted to have a choir of old men. Just
Okay.
yeah. So obviously with AI you have to try around for ages until that looks sort of right. What I ended up doing is I went into Photoshop and I just dropped in a free cutout. I'm using the Swedish website. It's not this, it's dot. Oh, no, let me edit the link. Whatever. It's selgoba.se, not com, whatever. So, well, there are countless websites that do free cutouts. And obviously, if you drop them into the image, just like I did here in the left middle picture, it's gonna look horrible. Like it doesn't match the lighting. Sometimes it doesn't match the perspective, but it's very easy to drop them in. You get them for free. You download them. If you have your standard website to do that. I also recommend having those go-to standards. Um, if you have that, drop them in Photoshop or any other image. You can do that in Paint if you want. Drop them in, and the second step is to crop the image. So for specific details, this is not just true for people, but for anything that you want, you have very harsh requirements for how it's supposed to look. Instead of providing the AI with a full picture, crop it down to as little as you can. In this case, just the people. So you can see the people go into the left bottom corner at the end. But I've dropped them into the right location. I've cropped the image, and then I've processed them with AI. And so the AI, instead of thinking, oh, this person has provided me with a huge image that it wants to be, better. Instead of thinking that, it will think, oh, this person has provided me with a picture where there's two people in it. So I'm going to focus on just doing those two people, just improving those. And suddenly the result looks amazing because it has the generation power. It puts all of that power into just improving the people instead of wasting energy on parts of the image that like in that step you just don't care about. And again, dropping it back into the image is quite simple because you already have the context. You can literally brush around, fade it out. It takes 20 seconds, like literally, and you have the AI image back in Photoshop. It's obviously, it's an extra step. It just takes 2 more minutes, but it's so much like if you consider waiting for just two more AI generations, iterations where when you need to try again because it doesn't look right, that already takes 5 minutes probably, or 2 minutes at least. And instead of that, you can also just crop it out very quick and put it back in Photoshop. It's more accurate and faster. So that's from my recommendation for people.
Genius.
As I've said it before, I highly encourage you to work physically by drawing, by printing stuff out on paper, by collaging. Quick and dirty is always what I say. Because a lot of the times, first of all, if you do it physically, you'll get a very different idea of how the pictures look. And usually if let's say you work for a final presentation, it's going to be printed out anyway at the end. So just printing it out very quickly in the process does make a very big difference. And what you can do, for example, is you can just sketch over it and then put that back into the AI. And as I've told you, the Rendair has a feature for putting in like, drawings. And so you could do that and put it back in as this drawing with or this printout with the adjustment. Just snap a picture of it and upload that to the AI. The base image is gonna look horrible, but you're gonna improve it anyway. And the most important bit is that the shapes are there and the context and the composition and all of that. So yeah, for those two projects that you see here, I've done that, and it did help quite a lot. It also just in your own brain, if you have an image and you need to change 20 things about it, just sketch it down very quick, and you can then just look back at the image, just like here, you can compare them. You can look back here, in one of the middle ones I've also drawn into the picture. You can look back at that and instantly know what you wanted to do. Because if you then spend 15 minutes, editing something, and then the next one, after 15 minutes, you're gonna have forgotten what you did before or what you wanted to do before. So that saves you quite a lot of time because it's just a bit more ordered and a bit more structured. So one thing you could do, and yeah, I just wanted to have another graphic on the workflow what's really important is to have these iterations, and in each one you have a very specific thing you're focusing on. The starting point should be something that you create in as little time as possible with exactly the same things that you want to be fixed. So if you have a building that you don't care what the color is, you don't care what the facade is, but you have a gutter that needs to look exactly the same way as you're planning it to be. Model that, spend time on that, provide that for the image, and then it'll know that that is important. But the rest you can kind of leave for later. And then you iterate through and you focus on specific details. You typically go, as you've seen in the Nepalese project, you go from big projects to small projects, or big details to small details. So first you change the general mood, then you maybe change the foliage that's in the background, then you change the people, then you change that weird door that doesn't look right, and then at the end you enhance it, and yeah. So big to small. And in concrete workflows, that could look something like this, where you actually start with a sketch or a drawing or a collage that you did. That's why I'm saying working physically is amazing. It also just motivates you. Like you don't want to sit in front of the computer for 16 hours in the final phase. Print stuff out, collage it in, scan it, and then provide it to the AI. That usually works just as well as having like a quickly photoshopped image. And then you could realistify it, change the people, and enhance. Or in a different situation, it might make more sense to provide a very basic shitty rendering, add the people, improve the atmosphere, and then do the rest. Yes. So here's a little recap. We did this experiment in the beginning. You have to give a lot of context for the rendering, and because it's incredibly hard for the AI to know what you have in your head if you don't tell it. So you can do that by words. It's usually more efficient to do it graphically by providing a basic image. AI rendering is iterative. You need to think of it as a process that goes in 20 or so sub-steps, where in each step you do something, something small scale about the image. Use whatever you're most comfortable with to provide the AI with the idea. So if you love working physically, do that. If you're good in Photoshop, use Photoshop, definitely. If you're good in Enscape, definitely use Enscape. But if you've never used Enscape, then maybe drawing it out with a pen is more efficient for you. In any case, it should be as simple as possible and as motivating as possible also. Just, do it fun, do it in a fun way. Yeah, iterate detail from large to small. That's very important. If you end up having to change bigger things at the end, that might lead into issues. It's possible, but it's sometimes, yeah, it can be complicated. Be aware that AI is great at certain things. That was this, creating atmosphere, creating variation, unusual textures, aging, lighting. It's horrible at others, just like consistency, for example. Yes, and don't hesitate to combine with other workflows. Work in Photoshop before, work with the AI, work with Photoshop afterwards. I always do a final touch-up in Photoshop, providing a bit of noise, sharpening it up a bit. I do that regardless of what I do before. If I rendered it before, I go into Photoshop after. If I used AI before, I also go into Photoshop after. So yes, and that is about it. Thank you for listening. I hope
Wow,
this was somehow informative.
that was
Um,
incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to say that I'm doing a lot of renderings. I'm spending a lot of time. I've learned proper rendering for years now, just because I always do it at work and stuff. And from the art direction job, I know Blender, and that all helps. I do not want you to be discouraged if you don't know how to use, an amazing 3D software that knows rendering as well. If you used Enscape for 3 days, you'll also be able to do this because you can provide, bad images to AI. If you know the workflow, it doesn't really matter how good you are. It definitely helps, obviously, but it doesn't really matter how good you're able to use the program. Yes, and it's less about the program actually than it is about understanding images. So if you want to get better at rendering, I recommend not sitting down on the computer, but actually grab your camera, go out and take photos. Like become a proper photographer. And then you'll start seeing things about composition, that exactly those things that photographers need. They also use like the professional AI or not AI visualizers, like ArcViz visualizers. They also need exactly the same skills as the photographers. They need the composition skills, they need the color skills, and you just learn that better if you go out and you start photography instead of trying to produce renderings over and over again. So yeah, that just as a heads up. And also I think it's better because it's just making the learning process a lot more fun, because you can do a lot more interesting things than just watching YouTube tutorials for dozens of hours.
Mhm. No, this was incredible. Thank you so much for all the great input you gave. I'm really glad that we had you on because you really broke it down into these steps, which is exactly what I'm looking for with this series, like someone to like step by step just go through exactly what they do. And I think you did an amazing job at that. I'm definitely gonna steal your AI people tactic now. I'm also gonna get into Rendair, hopefully. So if you see my renderings looking similar to Christian's, then mind your business, guys. But that is what's hopefully gonna happen because I definitely learned a whole lot. Like I did not know a lot of the things you were talking about, and to see the amount of iterations that it actually takes to get a polished render with AI is crazy because you just see your render and you're like, oh, this is amazing. Like you got it in like the fifth try, but actually it took like 17,000 different steps. So I'm very grateful that you took the time for that. And it was such a great presentation just all around. So thank you so much. I think we should be able to get into the Q&A now. Usually we have just a couple of questions before we finish. There was a person asking while you were still talking about what program you use for modeling. You already said Blender, but maybe you can elaborate on that.
Yes, I use Blender. It's just because I knew how to use it before. Blender is originally a program that comes from more the CGI side of things. So, the guys that do the amazing stuff for movies, for example, um, that's usually done in programs like Blender. And so Blender is amazing at doing very specific things in giving you a lot of options as well for if you want to do rendering. So if you're someone that is really into ArcViz and you really want to make perfect renderings, uh, do get into Blender. If you want to spend a minimum amount of time, I would say get into one of these more pre-packed rendering engines, just as Enscape or I don't know, D5, I think, as well as a big deal now. Get into those because they're just a bit more pre-packed. Blender needs you to do a few more steps to get to the rendering, but then you have also more ways of deciding. Yes, but for the big projects that I do, let's say this one, for example, I did not actually model in Blender. So I'm using a workflow where I start in ArchiCAD, and I do everything in ArchiCAD or let it be Revit as well, doesn't matter. And then I export the final model from there, and I just model. So for the facade, I just cover the facade in a very quick model to be able to control the geometry a bit better. Or for the ground, I model a very quick ground. I model some bike stands and some planters, but that's everything I do in Blender. So that takes about 30 minutes to model everything that was there. But yeah, modeling is a lot faster initially in ArchiCAD or Revit. Then you go into Blender to render, but you can do the model from scratch there, obviously. I've done that many times as well. In some cases that makes sense. But yeah, Blender is small modeling parts and then getting the rendering to be kind of fairly there, and then you use AI to enhance it and to do all the other steps.
Interesting. So we do have a couple more questions. This is probably the most amount of questions that I've gotten at this Q&A. So first we have a question. We have a person that asks multiple questions, so I'll just go one by one. The first one is, how can I trust AI with my work or projects without worrying that it will take my design or idea and use it elsewhere or study for future references? I don't think you can. That's the bottom line. It's an open engine, guys. Like we don't really know what they do with our stuff anyway, so you just have to be mindful and read the terms
I think
of maybe
Yeah,
have some
it's a
input.
question of values. I mean, you're benefiting from it because you take other people's ideas as well. It's been fed with other people's ideas, so you're benefiting from that while using it. But then you also have to be fine with it using it for other places. But it's definitely it's a big question of values, and it's something we're gonna have to talk about a lot more in the following years in general about AI, is whether it is supposed to use anything that is there in the internet, or whether that is maybe not the best idea also for society. But that has nothing to do with architecture specifically. It's just a general question. But yeah, right now you cannot avoid it.
I agree. I think there will definitely need to come some form of regulations in place. Did you saw that in, I think it's Sweden or one of the countries in that region, that they gave people protective rights over their own face images, and now AI can't use them or something. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy.
Uh,
Like we're inventing new laws now for AI, which is insane. I'm just
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
move to a couple more AI questions because the other questions that person did ask were more like student related, but I think we should get to the AI questions first. We also have a question. Could you make some of the AI programs to understand your attention space purely on your sketches, or is it just guidance for yourself? I think it means like this person means, can you just draw a sketch and then put it into AI, or does it always need the 3D model and the sketch is just like for your own reference?
Yeah, definitely. You can do that. That's what I was talking about. That
Mm-hmm.
might also save you time if you're not good in 3D. Sketch it out in a very well-made sketch. I think let me try to see if I can get back to Rendair. Where is it here? Yeah, it shows, I think, in this one. Here it shows. So this one provides a sketch, and then it creates a rendering out of it. Obviously, sketching is more abstract, and with it, it's sketching is usually faster than creating 3D models because it has less info in it. And the AI also then obviously has less info to work with, and it might give you results that are not as you wanted them to be because you just you didn't specify them in the drawing. With the drawing, what's nice is that you can then just add that very quick and resend it to the AI. So that might help. But in general, I would strongly advise you to just try it out. Do it. It can't hurt. And even if you then find that you want to make a proper 3D model first, you can still do that. But it might save you a lot of time. And it's definitely possible with not just with Rendair, but I think most AIs have this feature. And if they don't have the feature, they still have the possibility to kind of work with sketches. Maybe you have to specify it in the prompt that it's a sketch or something, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. You can also, in Adobe Firefly, which is the one I use the most frequently, you can definitely work with just a sketch as a base. Obviously, you have to count on the textures not being exactly the way you have them in your head just because you didn't sketch them out. But I think it's definitely still something you should test out. We have another question from Francesca, which she says, "Hi, thank you for the presentation. I have two questions. First of all, I didn't get if Rendair is free or not. And can you tell us something more about the prompt? Because I find it is the most difficult part. How should we structure it? How should we start to get the AI to understand the prompts?"
Yes. Yeah, first of all, Rendair is so I think most of these features aren't free. Well, it says it's free here. So I guess the most basic one is free, but yeah, as it usually is. What the things you really use, they're not free. I want to tell you, however, that it's really not about the AI that you use. I end up using Rendair just because I have this subscription for it. I would have probably already moved away to use a different one if I wouldn't have that. But just for me, it's more convenient to do that. For you, it will probably be more convenient to use a free one. And there are probably about 10 of them right now on the market that are free and that you can use with very similar tool sets and that do the job maybe even more amazingly and definitely in quicker time as well. And so, yeah, don't worry about the tool. And the second part, what was the second part of the question? Sorry.
The second part was, how should we structure the prompt? Because she feels like it is the most difficult part. But I think
Right.
if I understood you correctly, you're saying the prompt is not the most important part. Like the important part is the base that you give AI to then generate on top of, basically. That's what you were trying to get at, as far as I understood.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I think prompts are very, you hear this job like prompt engineer, right? And then you think like, wow, you need 3 years of study to be able to put proper prompts. And obviously it makes sense to know how to put proper prompts in a lot of the with Midjourney, for example, I think so at least how it started is you had to provide a prompt to get an image. Like you couldn't provide your own image for it. So you had to start with text. And obviously in that case you have to kind of understand what words lead to what associations with the AI. But in this case, it's just not important at all. What's 10 times more important and also just more effective and more reliable is to just use an image and specify whatever you would have specified in the image already. So if you have a sketch and you really want a red facade, just draw the facade in red already in the sketch. And that way the AI will know this facade is red. And that is much more reliable than actually writing it, make this facade red.
Amazing. We have another question. Do we need a strong base? Sorry, I can't see it because in manual rendering before jumping into AI. Yeah, I think that's more to you.
That's definitely something that can be discussed, I think, because it doesn't hurt. It really doesn't hurt. Everything that you know how to do in 3D, you don't have to rely on AI to do. And you can then decide whether you want to save a bit of time by doing it, by having it done by AI, but you can also do it yourself. So it basically gives you more freedom, and your creations might be a bit more exact if you have the strong base. But I would say it's really not needed to, well, it's so for jumping into AI, not needed at all. You could technically produce very good renderings on context without ever having used the 3D software or rendering software. You could definitely do that. So AI is completely disconnected from that. But the more knowledge you have, the easier you'll find it to be, because you just basically have a tool that lets you express in a way that is more accurate for the AI to read. That's all. Yeah.
Yeah. The way I always do it is I work with Rhino, so my workflow is a little bit different than yours, but I always put in the colors of what I want the individual textures to be. And then in my prompt, I specify like, oh, I want this to be red wood. And then when I put it into Adobe Firefly as a reference, it makes the red need the wood texture. So that's how I use it. You don't need to put like the actual textures of the different materials on it. You can if you want to waste a lot of time, I think, but you can definitely tweak it with AI more easily, at least from my experience. But you should just test it out. Like the AI is a work in process, and it might be that for your project it works better if you do have a stronger rendering base. So just test it out, see what textures you need, and then I think this would be a very individual thing to figure out. So thank you all for being here. I'm glad we also had such a rich Q&A at the end of the session. That means that whatever you said to us was very thought-provoking. So I'm very happy about that. Thank you so much, Christian, for your time and for the dedication and creating this amazing presentation. And thank you all for joining. So I think I'll see you guys in around 2 weeks, maybe 3, because I'm going on vacation. But thank you all so much and have a great rest of your week. Bye, everyone.